My name is Ee Waun, and welcome again to Stories Let's Connect, brought to you by the Speak Good English movement. Today, I am going to read to you an excerpt from another book of mine, The Little Singapore Book, which I wrote together with a very good friend, Joyceline See Tully. So it's a story about Singapore and how it came to be. And some people might say that it's history, but it is still a very good story. So let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a little island called Singapore. It was a rich and thriving kingdom ruled by ancient kings who lived in a royal palace up on the Forbidden Hill. Its harbour was filled with boats from across the region that came and went with the monsoon winds. In its busy markets were fine craftsmen and merchants who sold goods like hornbill casks, cloth, spices, and porcelain. If you visited hundreds of years ago, you would have met traders from China, Arabia, the Moluccas, India, Siam, and even Mongols who came in search of elephants. But fierce battles broke out among neighboring kingdoms and European powers, and in one of these battles, Singapore was burnt to the ground. All that was left was some coins, ceramic bowls, and ornaments. Over time, even these became buried in sand and dust, and so the old kingdom was forgotten. Singapore lay quiet as a sleepy fishing village for over 200 years, until 1819, when an Englishman called Stamford Raffles sailed up the river. He liked it so much, he persuaded Sultan Hussein and Tumenggung Abdul Rahman, the rulers, to let him set up a trading post. Eventually, Singapore became a British colony. This meant that Singapore belonged to England. With his friend Colonel William Farquhar, Raffles built roads, buildings, shophouses, markets, and a free port for ships to come and trade. People from all over the world came to work, live, and find a better life. There were Chinese, Indians, Malays, Javanese, Eurasians, Bugis, Arabs, and lots more. Singapore became a bustling city once again. Carriages and rickshaws plied the streets. Plantations sprang up, and merchant ships moored in the harbours once again. But most of the people were poor and had to work very hard. They were rickshaw pullers, coolies who carried heavy loads, dobies who washed clothes, and jagas who guarded buildings and great houses. There were fishermen and boat builders too. A few became rich merchants and landowners. Instead of keeping their money all to themselves, they used it to make Singapore a better place. These philanthropists built places of worship, hospitals, schools, and homes for the poor. Many of these are still around today. But one night in December 1941, while everyone was sleeping, war came. The Japanese dropped bombs on Singapore and marched into the city with guns and swords. The British Army in Singapore was not prepared and was quickly defeated. The Japanese changed Singapore's name to Sionantou. They killed thousands of people and ruled very cruelly for the next 3.5 years. No one knew when they would be tortured or killed by the Japanese. It was a dark and frightening time. When the Japanese were defeated in 1945, British warplanes flew over Singapore and dropped leaflets telling people the war had ended. You can imagine how happy everyone was. Free at last, they were all eager to get back to normal life. Even the children were thrilled to go back to school. And that brings me to the end of this little excerpt from the Little Singapore Book. Now, you might have come across two words that you may not have heard of before. One of them is merchant. So what does merchant mean? Merchant basically means a trader. It's an old word that most people don't really use anymore, but it basically means a person who buys and sells things as a living. So he was a merchant. The next word is philanthropist. It's a very long word. It basically means a person who donates money to help other people. So usually a philanthropist might donate money to the poor and the sick, or he might donate money to build buildings that help people in general. For instance, hospitals, libraries, schools, and museums. Can you think of any philanthropists in Singapore? I'm sure you'll come up with lots of names. And this brings me to the end of this session of Stories Let's Connect. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
What did the Japanese change Singapore's name to? The Japanese changed Singapore's name to Sionanto. Which groups of people came to Singapore to work, live, and find a better life? These groups included Chinese, Indians, Malays, Javanese, Eurasians, Bugis Arabs, and many more.